Hi, my name is Roya Tompkins, and I am a registered technologist, a business owner, and the author of the Neurodiagnostic Niche blog. Today, I want to talk to you about the evolving role of the neurodiagnostic technologist. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, if you've been following my blog, you know that I typically like to start my posts with a quote. This particular one is a favorite of mine. It's applicable not just in our field of neurodiagnostics, but obviously in every aspect of what we do. Just a quick look back on how neurodiagnostics all got started. In 1924, the first alpha rhythm was recorded by Hans Berger, who's a German psychiatrist, and his advancements were then further expanded upon over the course of the next decades until, fun fact, in 1937, the first EEG lab was established in Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. So hence launched what we now know as the first EEG technicians. The equipment, no doubt, has evolved right along with us. This is a photo from the Natus Museum collection. If you're one of the few like me that were lucky enough to work in this field when tracings were recorded on pen and paper, you no doubt missed the auditory component of the test. You never quite forget the sound that a seizure makes. But like everything in life, the advancement into the digital tracing makes the improvement so well worth it. So as the equipment evolved over the years, so did the technical staff. As you can see from the slide, the profession expanded, as well as the credentials to recognize the skill set for the various modalities that now encompass the field of neurodiagnostics, including even this year where new credential options have been introduced with the neuroanalyst certification. But one thing to note, with the exception of the RPSGT credentials for polysomnography, none of the credentials are required to work in the field. Perhaps that's the disparity that we see in this chart. Even though the registry for the EEG exam has been around much longer, and the EEG is the more widely administered test, there are a far greater number of registered sleep techs. If that's where you currently are experienced but not registered yet, if there's one takeaway that I hope you get from this talk, it's this. The pass rate is really high for this test, around 85%. And you'll see from the number of people sitting for their exam that the number of registered EEG technicians in the world is not low because people aren't passing the test. It's low because not a lot of people are taking it. You can see here only 447. These are the statistics from 2019. 2018 also has similar statistics, and 2020 hasn't been published yet. And obviously, because of testing circumstances, that data is probably going to be kind of off. You can see by this slide, there are multiple pathways that a technician can qualify to take the exam. And as we saw from the previous slide, that there wasn't a really significant difference in the pass rate between pathways 1, 2, or 3. And note, there is a change to the eligibility for pathway 4 starting in 2021, with the increase moving from 4 years to 5. So why the focus on credentials? Because as our field evolves, this area of testing continues to expand, and it's important to recognize and show that a certain level of training and competency has been mastered. Secondly, it is required if you're working with some patient populations. It's been required by Medicare for some time now, and there is a new initiative in California looking at making licensure a requirement. And there's that saying, as California goes, so does the rest of the country. But more importantly and most applicable, there's a significant salary difference between a registered technologist and a non-registered technician. And then, of course, job growth. There's a significant projected increase in this area for us, which is always a good thing to be needed. So the changes in the field in 2020, COVID, remote monitoring coding changes. One we had no idea was coming, and the other we did. In the spring of 2020, where'd we find ourselves? Televisits for physician appointments with clinics closed to patients, hospitals limiting their admissions and elective scheduled procedures canceled, families looking to limit their exposure. Personal protective equipment became our norm, temperature checks with our waiting rooms closed, disposable electrodes encouraged, HV recommendation changes, and remote testing options being preferred if available. So, what happens when the pandemic resolves? Will we shift back or will some of these changes remain? It's, of course, too soon to know at this point. But even pre pandemic, we're all trained to practice universal precautions for infection control. The second change that 2020 brought are the new coding changes for long-term video EEG monitoring. If you search the Natus eSeminar archives, you'll find a really good presentation on this from about a year ago. Even though we've worked through the reimbursement changes, some perhaps are still working through them. One area I'd like to comment on is the new job opportunity that these changes created for staff working in this field. And that's the creation of the new job entitled the Intermittent Monitoring Technologist. Who would have known that as an EEG technologist you could work from home? This is big. The advantages to this area are really exciting, and the opportunities that are presented with this flexibility are many. If this is something you're interested in, I would highly encourage you to look into ways you could expand your skills and step into this area of testing. And then finally, leadership. This area of the field needs you, whether as a lead technologist or a lab manager, a mentor, or an instructor. Emerging leaders are needed to help provide that vision, focus, and just influence, particularly to help new technicians entering into the field so that they get started on the right foot. Also, if an area of interest is to serve in a volunteer leadership capacity, ABRIT and Asset have online modules that help prepare technologists just for that. For those looking for ways to expand their skills, college coursework, cross-training to different modalities, and are looking for other CEU opportunities. It's kind of a cheesy saying, let's stay curious and grow what we know, but if you follow my blog, you're familiar with the way I end most of my posts. Some key takeaways. There's several pathways to registry. There's a growing need for technologists. Look for those opportunities to expand your skill set. The shift to remote monitoring is new. Look for ways to gain that experience, provide feedback and improvement suggestions. And how can you now or in the future contribute as a leader in the field? And then one more, don't be afraid to take the exam if you've not gotten registered yet. It does have that high pass rate and it's a very good return on your investment. And finally, I'd just like to close by mentioning my blog, The Neurodiagnostic Niche. I started it a little over a year ago and it's really been a lot of fun for me. There's a lot of free resources on the site that I hope are very helpful for you. There's a weekly blog, a resource library, study guides, and there's a contact form if you have any questions. They come directly to my inbox. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, I would love it if you could stop by. It's a Neurodiagnostic Niche. You just enter your email address at the bottom of the page and you'll receive an email anytime I post. And lastly, I just want to thank you for your time.